வணக்கம். நம்ம 9:30 மணிக்கு ஆரம்பிக்க வேண்டிய செஷன் இன்றைய நாளில் நம்ம ரொம்ப ஒரு 30 நிமிடத்துக்கு மேலே காலதாமதமாக ஆரம்பித்தோம். அதனால் இந்த செஷன்ஸ் எல்லாம் ரொம்ப லேட்டாக போயிட்டுருக்கு. ஆனாலும் கூட காலதாமதமாக வந்தாலும் கூட பலரும் இங்கே வந்திருப்பது மகிழ்ச்சி அளிக்கிறது. முக்கியமாக சென்னையிலிருந்து வருகை தந்துள்ள எங்களது வட சென்னை நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் டாக்டர் கலாநிதி வீராசாமி அவர்களை வருக வருக என்று வரவேற்கின்றோம். டாக்டர் கலாநிதி வீராசாமி எங்கள் மெட்ராஸ் டெவலப்மெண்ட் சொசைட்டிலையும் உலக தமிழ் பொருளாதார மையத்திலும் ஒரு ப்ரொமோட்டர், ஒரு பேட்ரன். அவர் இந்த பார்ட் ஆஃப் தி ஆர்கனைசேஷன். அவர் என்னன்னாக்கா அவருடைய எம்பியாக இருக்கிறது நார்த் மெட்ராஸில் இருக்கிறதுனால முதலமைச்சர் தொகுதி அதுக்குள்ளே தான் வருது. அதனால் அவர் ஈஸியில் வெளியில் வர்றது போகிறதுன்றது அவ்வளோ கஷ்டமான விஷயம். அதை எப்போ அவர் முதலமைச்சர் நிகழ்ச்சி அங்கே இல்லையோ அதுக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி தான் அவரால் வர முடியும். இருந்தாலும் அவர் இன்றைக்கு இன்றைய நாணயம் எங்களுடன் இருப்பது எங்களுக்கு மகிழ்ச்சி அளிக்கிறது. ஸோ அதனால் அவருக்கு தகுந்த ஒரு நேரத்தில் அவரை மேடையில் கூப்பிட்டு பேச வைப்பது என்று நாங்கள் முடிவெடுத்திருக்கிறோம். அதே போல் நமது அம்பாசிடர் எங்களுடைய அவரும் பயணிக்கிறவர், பேட்ரன். அவர் உதவியால் பல மாநாடுகள் எங்களுக்கு வெற்றிகரமாக நடைபெற்றது. டாக்டர் அம்பாசிடர் மகாலிங்கம் அவர்கள் கயானாவிலே கடைசியாக அம்பாசிடர் ஓய்வு பெற்றவர். அவர் அமெரிக்காவிலிருந்து ஒரு கான்ஃபரன்ஸை முடிச்சுட்டு நேராக அங்கேருந்து இங்கே வந்திருக்கிறாரு. அதனால தான் அவரால் நேற்று வர முடியல. நேற்று இரவு தான் வந்தார். அவரையும் நான் வருக வருக என்று வரவேற்கின்றேன். அதே போல் நம்ம பாண்டிச்சேரியுடைய ஸ்பீக்கர், அதாவது ஸ்பீக்கராக புரட்டக்காலில் அந்த பாண்டிச்சேரியில் முக்கியமான மனிதர் அவர். அது மட்டும் இல்லை, 2018 அதாவது 5வது உலக தமிழர் பொருளாதார மாநாட்டினை மிக வெற்றிகரமாக நடத்தி கொடுத்த பெருமை அவருக்கு உண்டு. அவர் தான் அந்த கான்ஃபரன்ஸ் சேர்மனாக இருந்தார். எங்கள் கான்ஃபரன்ஸுடைய பேட்டர்னாக தொடர்ந்து இருக்கார். அவர் எங்களுடைய ஒரு வெல்விஷர் மட்டுமல்ல, ஒரு பார்ட் ஆஃப் அவர் குரூப்பு. அந்த வகையில் அவரை வரவேற்பதில் நாங்கள் மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகின்றோம். அதே போல் திரு கராத்தி தியாகராஜன், அவரை அறியாதவர் இருக்க முடியாது. அவர் சென்னை மாநகரத்தினுடைய துணை மேயராக இருந்தவர். அவரும் அதே மாதிரி எனக்கு ஒரு நாங்கள் அடிக்கடி சந்திக்கவில்லை என்றாலும் கூட எப்போ சொல்லிட்டே இருப்பாருன்னா, நீங்கள் அது பண்ணுங்கள், இது பண்ணுங்கள், சமூக சேவை பண்ணுறது எங்களுக்கு சந்தோஷமாக இருக்குன்னுவார். மலேசியாவோட ரொம்ப தொடர்புள்ளவர். அவர் மலேசியாவில் நிறைய உறவினர்கள் இருக்காங்க. மலேசியாவில் அவருக்கு தெரியாதவர்களே இல்லை என்று சொல்கிற அளவுக்கு அந்த அளவுக்கு அவர் இந்த ஊரில் பாப்புலர் ஆனவர். அவர் சொன்னார், இங்கே ரொம்ப சேலஞ்சிங் ஆச்சு, ரொம்ப கஷ்டமான ஜாபை நீங்கள் எடுத்துருக்கீங்களேன்னாரு. ஆமாம் அப்படின்னேன். ஏன் அங்கே போய் எடுத்தீங்கன்னு கூட எனக்கு சொன்னார். சரி, அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணியாச்சு, நம்ம ஃபேஸ் பண்ணுவோன்னு சொல்லி தான் இந்த மாநாட்டுக்கு அவர் வந்திருக்காரு. அவர் சொன்னார் நேற்று என்னோட ஃபோனில், 3.5 வருஷத்துக்கு பிறகு முதல் தடவை நான் ட்ராவல் பண்ணுறேன். ஆஃப்டர் கொரோனாவுக்கு பிறகு இப்போ தான் நான் வெளியிலே வரேன், உங்கள் மாநாடுன்றதுனால தான் நான் வரேன்னாரு. அவரை அன்புடன் வரவேற்கின்றேன். அதே போல் இங்கே வந்திருக்கிற பல முக்கிய பிரமுகர்களையும் வருக வருக என்று வரவேற்கின்றேன். மற்றபடி அமெரிக்காவிலேருந்து நேற்றே அவங்களெல்லாம் மேடையில் அறிமுகப்படுத்திட்டேன். வீரா வேணுகோபால் வந்திருக்காரு. நம்ம டாக்டர் பழனி ஜி பெரியசாமி, அவர் எங்களுடைய பர்மனெண்ட் பேட்ரன். அவர் நேற்று வந்திருக்காரு. இன்றைக்கி அவர் ஈவினிங் ஊருக்கு போகிறேன்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருக்காரு. அவரை தடுத்து நிறுத்த முடியாத சூழ்நிலை, அவங்க வீட்டுக்கு கல்யாணம், அதனால் அவர் நிச்சயமாக போயாகணும். அதே போல் இவர் சிவமூப்பனார் வந்திருக்காரு. அவங்கெல்லாம் அடுத்த மாநாடை நடத்தி கொடுக்க இருக்கிற பெருமக்கள். அடுத்தது இவர் நம்ம சவுத் ஆப்பிரிக்காவிலேருந்து முன்னாள் துணை மேயர் ரோகி நாயுடு வந்திருக்கிறாரு. உங்கள் அனைவரையும் இங்கே வந்திருக்கிற மற்ற பெருமக்களையும் வருக வருக என்று மனமும் திரும்புவார்கள். அதே போல் நமது காசி முத்துமாணிக்கம், அவர் ஒரு பெரிய சோஷியல் ஒர்க்கர், பாலிட்டிஷியன், பிஸ்னஸ்மேன், எல்லாத்துலையும் இருக்கிறவர். அவருக்கு இன்னும் கவர்மெண்ட் போஸ்ட்டு, எலெக்டட் போஸ்ட்டு கிடைக்கல. அது ஏதாவது ஒரு பதவிக்கு வரணும். இந்த மாநாட்டின் மூலமாக நாங்கள் வாழ்த்துக்கிறோம். ஆமாம், ஆமாம். இப்போ அடுத்த செஷன் முடிச்சுட்டு நம்ம டீ பிரேக்கு போவோம். அந்த செஷனை சுருக்கமாக முடித்து கொடுப்பது திரு விடுதலை கையிலும் மற்றும் திரு ரவீந்திரன் கையிலும், தியாகராஜன் மற்றும் மீனாட்சி சுந்தரம் ஆகியோர் கையில் இருக்கிறது. இங்கே இந்த லாஸ்ட் செஷனுக்கு தலைமை இருக்கிற முன்னாள் அட்வொகேட் ஜெனரல் திரு ஆர் விடுதலை அவர்களையும், முன்னாள் நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் ஃப்ரம் சிங்கப்பூர் மிஸ்டர் ரவீந்திரன் அவர்களையும், மூத்த வழக்கறிஞர் சென்னை உயர்நீதிமன்றம் திரு தியாகராஜன் அவர்களையும், டாக்டர் மீனாட்சி சுந்தரம் பகுதி நேர சட்டக்கல்லூரி பேராசிரியரும் வழக்கறிஞருமான திரு மீனாட்சிதர் அவர்களையும் வருக வருக என்று வரவேற்கின்றேன். இந்த செஷன் வந்து இப்போ என்ன டைம், இப்போ வந்து 11:19 ஆகுது. நீங்கள் எப்படியாவது 12 மணிக்கு இதை முடித்து கொடுத்தீர்களானால் அவர்கள் போய் டீ சாப்பிடுவதற்கு வசதியாக இருக்கும். லஞ்ச் நேரமும் சேராமல் பார்த்து கொள்வது உங்கள் கையில் இருக்கிறது என்று சொல்லி, அதாவது 4 பேரும் சட்ட வல்லுநர்கள், உங்களால் சொல்ல வேண்டியதை சுருங்கமும் சொல்ல முடியும், நீட்டியும் சொல்ல முடியும், ஒரே வார்த்தையிலும் சொல்ல முடியும். அது உங்களுடைய திறமை என்று சொல்லி உங்களிடம் அவையை ஒப்படைப்பதில் நான் மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகின்றேன். முதலில் திரு விடுதலை அவர்களை தலைமை உரையாற்றுமாறு அழைக்கிறேன். வாங்க.
All the ladies and gentlemen assembled here, we are on the Global Economic Summit. But what lies at the basis of everything in life is law. We are told that from cradle to grave, man is governed by the law. Whether it is personal law, business law, economic law, political law, or whatever may be the character. But law lies at the root of everything. You're all great businessmen. You know the nuances of business. You have established yourself, you have become successful. But what lies at the basis of international trade and business for economic development? Today's topic is laws, rules, and regulations relating to international trade and business for economic development. Say, for example, the member of parliament is here. Every country can make laws, but it applies only to their territories. Beyond the province of the nation, the law does not run. The fate does not run beyond the nation. So when it comes to a question of international trade or international business, which is the law that governs? In this connection, there are about 4 phases in the world. One is, initially, it was economic domination by the establishment of the British Empire. Then, it was a matter of economic isolation. Thirdly, as the world evolved towards peace, it was a matter of globalization. And fourthly, the current trend is national economic supremacy. So, what is all this about? As law is not only my profession, but it is my passion and love, I tell you, it is very simple once you understand that. Say, for example, after the Second World War was over, in the year 1945, the world felt the need for economic development in a peaceful manner. What should be done? America took the initiative to say that let us establish an international trade organization which will codify the law governing about 195 to 200 countries in the world. They wanted to establish an international trade organization which did not fructify. Ultimately, what happened? Okay, we will have an agreed formula. So there was a general agreement on tariff and trade, which was established in 1947, wherein all the countries which want to trade together, they agree on certain fundamental principles of law. How the products have to be traded, how exports and imports are to be governed, and how business can be augmented by finding new markets at the international arena. So if you ask me what are the laws that govern the international trade, number 1 is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, which was ruling the rules from 1945 to 1979. Thereafter, we established the World Trade Organization. The World Trade Organization had a lot of members. It started with 23 members, and later it grew to 1 or 2 members, and then 180 members now. There are about, you must be knowing, 195 to 200 countries in the world as of now. Nearly 180 countries are members of this World Trade Organization. So from GATT to be moved to World Trade Organization. Okay, that accounted for economic cooperation. What about the legal aspects of the matter? Therefore, in the year 1996, the necessity was felt with globalization. We must have some uniform standard law in each country which will permit international trade and between countries of the world. Therefore, the United Nations Assembly, they established the organization called UNCITRAL, United Nations Conference on Trade Laws. The UNCITRAL, which was established in the year 1996, they started framing the basic format of a law for every law, which will be adopted by the countries of parliament. Say, for example, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996, which was enacted by the Parliament of India. It's almost, you can find similar laws in each and every countries which are part of the UNCITRAL, United Nations Organization. Therefore, a commonality was established whereby each country will have similar laws which will enable each of the countries to interact with one another for the purpose of economic development. So UNCITRAL is the latest development. Arbitration and Conciliation Act, Information Technology Act, Right to Information Act, company laws, all these have been orchestrated in various countries in a uniform manner so that the law can develop and international trade can develop. The globalization, as you all know, from the year 1990, it has led to vast improvement in the economic development of the countries. In fact, the present aim of India is to become a 5 trillion economy. You know, as of now, we stand number 5 in the world economically, next only to USA, China, Japan, and Germany. And our own Chief Minister in Tamil Nadu has said, we will make Tamil Nadu a 1 trillion economy. Therefore, the present trend is, we will go with globalization, but ultimately national economic supremacy would be our objective. With this objective, and with the basis of the UNCITRAL, GATT, and the World Trade Organization, they form the basis of the laws. It would be a misnomer to call it laws because they are all international agreements and covenants. Laws are unilaterally made, but agreements are bilaterally arrived at. So, international trade is mostly governed by bilateral agreements, international covenants and agreements. And UNCITRAL is an organization which brings about consensus amongst the countries so that there can be uniform laws in all the countries of the world. So there are legal luminaries like Mr. Ravindran, former Member of Parliament of Singapore, and my own dear friend, Senior Advocate Mr. A. Thiagarajan, and Mr. Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram. They're all well-versed in law. And I must take this opportunity to thank my dear friend, Dr. V.R. Sampath, with whom I commenced my legal journey some 45 years ago, and still continuing. And I am really grateful for him for giving me this opportunity to chair this session. Thank you.
அடுத்ததாக திரு ரவீந்திரன் அவர்கள், என்னுடைய அருமை நண்பர் திரு ரவீந்திரன் அவர்கள் கடந்த 20 ஆண்டு காலமாக எனக்கு மிக அறிமுகமான நண்பர். சிங்கப்பூர்னா அவர் தான் எனக்கு, அந்த மாதிரி அவரும் நானும் நண்பர்களாக இருக்கிறோம். அவர் மெம்பர் ஆஃப் பார்லிமெண்ட்டாக ஒரு டேர்ம் இருந்தார், இன்னொரு டேர்ம் வரணும்னு ஆசைப்படுறேன். அவர் இப்பொழுது சுருக்கமான ஒரு சட்ட உரையினை ஆற்றி தொழில் தொடங்குவதற்கான வாய்ப்புகளை சிங்கப்பூரில் என்ன உள்ளது என்பதை சொல்வார்.
அவையில் இருக்கும் அனைவருக்கும் என்னுடைய முதற்கான வணக்கத்தை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். Good morning to everybody. Chairman, distinguished members of the panel, excellencies and dear friends, a very good morning to all of you all. The topic given today is very interesting. Usually it takes one semester in a university to cover this course of rules and regulation of doing business and trade overseas, but I'll try to summarize in 10 minutes what is essential. It's even more daunting because as I look around, many veteran businessmen are here who can actually teach me on these aspects, but I will try to explain as much as possible for some of the newbies who are thinking of doing business and trade overseas. Well, first of all, I think you should consider what kind of business establishment you would like to establish when you go overseas, whether it's a sole proprietorship, partnership, or a corporate structure. depending on the nature of the risk that you want to take. Partnership and sole proprietorship may expose you personally for liability, but corporate structure will prevent you from getting personal exposure. So consider the different structure and also the tax structure when you do it. Now, when you go overseas, it's also equally important that you keep in mind some of the regulatory requirements. For example, if in case you want to employ people overseas, you have to consider whether it's easy to get employment pass for your home-based country. Suppose you want to mobilize your CFO, your CTO or CFO, whether it's easy to get work permits, work passes overseas in that particular country where you want to establish a business. The other thing that you want to consider is whether it's expensive employing local people, whether it's easy to hire and fire people as your business requires, or whether there are restrictions, whether there are union movements, whether there are statutory protection accorded to workers in that particular country. So these are very essential things that you need to consider when it comes to employing local staff. Now, the third area that you need to consider is also the taxation structure and other financial structures that may be in place. Now, some countries, there are taxes that can be exorbitant. So you need to think of creative structures and methods to minimize your tax exposure in this country. So something that may look attractive on first proposition may not become attractive when you put in all the duties and taxes that are in place. So these are something that is essential for you to consider. Now, the other factors that need to consider is if you are in some sector where you have a lot of IP that you need to be protected. For example, if it is in the case of some software, some pharmaceutical products, some new robotic equipment that you have created. Now, you want to ensure that wherever you go, you enjoy IT protection. Because some of the countries, for example, in China, even in India, people are very creative and they can actually do R&D and completely recreate your product and market it. So you want to ensure that when you go to a country or environment, your IP is protected. Not only protected in your home country, but where you go and introduce or sell your product, you want to ensure that your IP is well protected. Now, the fourth area that I would like to encourage you to consider is when you are doing business overseas, particularly trade, you want to be very much aware of the free trade agreements that may exist between your country and the country that you are going to do business in. For example, if I'm in Singapore or Malaysia, you would like to look at the free trade agreement that exists between Singapore and India and try to find the exact sectors that affect you, because in some cases, many of the duties have already been removed or minimal tax is there. So one is you look at the bilateral free trade agreements, and then you should also look at the regional free trade agreements. Like, for example, India has got a very good free trade agreement with ASEAN, which also makes exceptions and duty-free export for many products. And if you're exporting to other countries, for example, like China, Japan, then we have got the regional comprehensive economic partnership agreement, which is even wider and gives you duty-free exposure and or minimal duties on a lot of products. Now, this is very important because I give you an example that I experienced about 3 weeks ago. A good friend of mine came, he had created e-bikes, and he actually sent 50 of these e-bikes to India, sort of wanted to sample it to different customers. But to his horror, he discovered that e-bikes are taxed at 250%. And that gave him a shock. But this is a lesson learned, because when you want to export into a new market, it's worthwhile to really do your homework. Otherwise, you will get a shock. And similarly, he gave the e-bike to me and said, why don't you try it in Singapore? Then I realized that the e-bike actually weighed 24 kg, and that there was a requirement of control on the speed of the e-bike, which is 20 kilometers an hour. But this bike can go up to 40, 50 kilometers an hour, and the weight restriction in Singapore was 20 kg. So these are all lessons that you should take note when you're a businessman. What are the local requirements? Now, the other thing that you need to be aware is there is a lot of rules and regulations that are applicable in many countries. So you need to be wary of some of these rules and regulations. For example, in some sectors, if it is in media, defense, or certain mining industry, there may be a lot of restrictions on how much foreigners can hold in that company. And so in some countries, they the people come out with very creative solutions, but you got to be careful that when you adopt a structure, a corporate structure that tries to bypass these rules, there are all risks. So when you invest, go on with an open mind, but do be aware of many of these rules and regulations, because you don't want to be caught where one day the regulatory authority comes to you and says, you did not comply with this rule, you did not comply with certain requirements that are required. For example, in Malaysia, if you want to invest, in some sectors, you need a Bumiputra investor who is a local born Malay businessman. So some of these regulatory requirements are peculiar to different countries. And sometimes you may think that what is on paper is written, that is the only requirement that you need to comply. For example, sometimes they'll tell you that there is a one-channel application for everything, but along the way you will discover that that channel has got a super fast channel, a slow channel, and a normal channel. So you got to find out what are the local difficulties that you'll face, and for this you need to do homework, contact the local businessmen who do business there and try to understand the difficulties, problems, and challenges that these countries may pose for you. So do your homework well, consult the professionals, whether it's lawyers, accountants, or any business advisors in that country, to navigate the difficulties that you may face. So the other point that I wanted to share with you all as businessmen when you do business overseas is always think that when the problem comes, can I find an easy solution? Because sometimes it's very tempting to go to a country, then when you get into problems, you realize that the court structure, the legal side has got a lot of problems, matters can get delayed, police reports can be made against you, so a lot of hurdles can be created by the local business partner or some local regulator for you. So try to find solutions to this early. Even before you go, ask yourself, if I get into trouble, is there enough protection? Can I go for mediation? Can I go for arbitration? Can I go for litigation and find a solution to my problems early, so that just as much as you are eager to go in, it's also easy for you to exit and terminate your businesses there and take out your money as fast as possible. So there is a lot of things that you need to consider. I don't want to go into too much detail, because today if you go in AI chat GPT and say, what are the risks of doing business, most of the answers are there. But what I'm trying to do is just to summarize for your benefit, so that when you do business overseas, you're aware of many of these challenges and try to adhere to the rules and regulations so that you don't get into trouble. With that, I'll just conclude now. Thank you very much, but we are prepared to take questions if there are any later. Thank you.
நீதிமன்றத்தில் நீதிபதிகளுக்கு கட்டுப்படுறாங்களே இல்லையோ, இந்த சபையை கட்டுப்படுத்தி எல்லாம் அவங்க நேரத்துக்கு முடிக்கிறாங்க பாருங்கள். இதுதான் வழக்கறிஞர்கள்லாம் வழக்கறிஞர் தான். ஆமாம். அடுத்து மூத்த வழக்கறிஞர் தியாகராஜன், டாக்டர் தியாகராஜன் அவர்கள் இப்பொழுது அதே மாதிரி 10 நிமிஷத்துக்கு 8 நிமிஷத்தில் கூட முடிப்பார் அவர்.
Good morning to everyone. ஊக்கம் உடையார் உயருடையார். We are a Sambat. It's 11th year. He is not leaving us. The topic today is relating to law, which the business people may not like, because it's very difficult to follow each and every day business activities. In particular, go to foreign countries, carry on business, either manufacture or trading, whatever it may be. The law of the country, restrictions, prohibitions, and what are the goods which are permissible, rate of duty, rate of tax, manufacturing cost, everything is the root cause for a business. In particular, the manufacturing cost in one country will be lesser than the other country. Labor charges will be different from one country to other country. So wherever labor gets more salaries, people will migrate. That is why the whole world is running. The problem is to carry on a business, the law is the most important factor which have to be carried out. Either mercantile system of accounting or cash accounting. The accounting system is the most basis for a businessman to carry on business in a particular country. The forms, requisite forms for registration of a particular country. If a country like India or Malaysia, where there are so many states, they will have their own state laws and central laws. There will be various forms for the registration under the State Act as well as the Central Act. Transportation of goods also carries on business by way of raising invoices, e-invoices, tax invoices, then exempted goods, importation of goods from one country to another country, exportation, the taxes, getting foreign exchange to the country. These are all a basic requirement to be understood by a businessman. Any dispute arises, where is the remedy lies to the dispute. Now, in the international trade, there is an international court of justice. You can't go to the international court of justice for these business transactions. So the business transactions are based on the constitution of the country where a person going to start the business. The constitution of the country recognizes the law passed, the agreement passed between the businessman, between the countries. So the enforceability of the agreement between the nations, member nations, will be the criteria. So therefore, while going into start a business, you must acquainted with the nature of the legal implications of the particular country with your nation. There must be an agreement between your nation and the other nation where you are going to carry on business. Whether the particular country has been recognized by the constitution of the particular country, therefore, you can invoke the jurisdiction of the particular country for the purpose of carrying on business, settle the dispute. Now the arbitration has come, and international commercial arbitration has come into force. After that, there are various disputes are decided by the International Commercial Arbitration Disputes Resolution Forum. They have a separate law for that, and the disputes can be solved only by arbitrations. Otherwise, you have to follow the local law of the country. Therefore, before going into start the business, you must be consult with a lawyer. The previous speakers spoke about the real estate business. They also expressed the difficulties of conversion of lands, conversion of patta, etc. Therefore, the basic structure of a businessman to carry on business in another country is to decide the cost production, exemptions wherever the goods are exempted, and those areas you can concentrate on for the purpose of getting profit in the business. So invariably, export and imports are exempted from tax for the purpose of earning revenue to the concerned country. So therefore, you people must concentrate on the export where the exempted goods are highly wanted by the people or the society for consumers. So the way in which the production is made will be resulting upon the consumption and making profit out of the manufactured activities of a particular product. So in the competitive world, wherever there is a production, there will be always competition. To get over the competition, you people have to select the commodity and start manufacturing the products. The way in which you carry on business is your own. The particular law of the country will have its own boundaries. Beyond that, it will not help you. Therefore, my sincere advice is to maintain your accounts properly. To maintain the accounts of the particular country. For example, India, we have a two-system mercantile system and cash system. So the system of accounting is the most important factor for a businessman, and to follow the various forms. As far as the GST is concerned, Malaysia has repealed the GST Act. Now they have introduced new act is called Sale and Service Tax Act. So all over the world we are going to GST, the complications are more. Therefore they are reverting to their own system so that it is easy for the business people to carry on business, and the remedies are available under the statute of the particular country relating to the statutory provisions. Only the statutory provisions will be the safeguard, but nowadays the act is when you file an appeal, you have to deposit the amount and file an appeal. So these are all the various background in which you have to concentrate and carry on business. On this occasion, I wish all the success to Mr. Sambat and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Dr. Tyagarajan always the great da. He told the points and also he finished the speech according to our request. Now I am requesting Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram. He is a part-time lecturer in the Ambedkar Law University and law colleges, and also is an active practitioner, and also is one of the committee member in Madras Development Society.
I thank the organizer and the chairman, Dr. V.R. Sambas, for giving this one more opportunity to address the audience. My endeavor and the object of addressing this audience is not to say what are the laws that deals with international business and other things and all. My endeavor is to impress upon the people who are present here, that is parliamentarian like Dr. Gandhi and my other friend, and business people, Dr. Jalaluddin, other people and other things. What is the implication? How these laws is to be interpreted municipally? That is my endeavor. It is not, there is no international law which governs everybody. No nations of two countries are governed by any law individually. These laws, that is the treaties, are made for the purpose of enabling the individual sovereign state to amend their law in conformity to the treaty conditions. Excepting for that purpose, these treaties are not anymore used. And many, as my friend, the chairman said about the GATT, one important omission is in General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, 3 institutions were formed. One is International Monetary Fund, the second is World Bank, and the third is International Trade Organization. Many participating countries, they are not called members countries because the GATT did not come into existence at all. Many participating countries agreed. Then it went to United States for approval. The only states which has got distinguishing feature for implementation of the treaty is United States. United States, the president as the executive can enter into treaties, but it must go to the Senate for approval. If the Senate did not approve it, then no treaty can be implemented. As far as all other countries, including UK and India, the parliament, with great respect, subject to correction, I will tell you, the parliament has got no power whatsoever to go beyond the treaty conditions. They are bound to implement, in the sense, incorporate, alter the municipal law in conformity to the treaty conditions. At that time, the American Senate refused to agree for the international trade agreement to govern the trade and tariff with regard to all countries. So the GATT failed. But the America took advantage of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank to govern and control the monetary transaction of all other countries. These 2 institutions were formed. It happened in 1947. Then 1986, the pharmaceutical giants of United States started the negotiation once again for the purpose of marketing their product in developing countries and underdeveloped countries. It took 8 years. From 86 to 94, the negotiation went on and on and on. In 1994, the developed countries, in particular, it is called G8 countries, the developed countries, they are fed up. How long we can discuss. And they said, whatever you want, you give it in writing, we will add it in the preamble, and we will conclude the treaty. That is how the World Trade Organization came into existence. What are the objections that we made? The developing countries said, we are not ready to accept all those things. We require some time. They said, all right, how many years want? We said 5 years. All right, you take 5 years. Then the countries with regard to pharma industry, those who are following process patent, they said, we convert to product patent, we require another 5 years. All right, you take it. So in effect, they gave 10 years time, but ultimately, after 10 years, that product patent regime came into existence even in India. If you look upon the discussion that took place in the parliament, with great respect, again subject to verification, I am telling you, first it was introduced by BJP, it was defeated by Congress, then Congress introduced, it was defeated by BJP. Ultimately, 31st December 1994, I think 2004, the President promulgated an ordinance, the act came into existence. It is the position of all these things. The two preamble that is very important is Article 7 and 8, which was incorporated or agreed to be incorporated at the instance of mainly India and Brazil and other developing countries. These two countries clearly stipulated that a power is to be retained in all provisions that is implementing the WTO treaty. If any public interest is involved in a particular domestic country, then that particular provision can be waived. But no legislature or no executive to read upon the preamble to the WTO, and they merely took the terms of the treaty and put it in act. Then another thing that was introduced, sui generis system. With regard to the agriculture sector, we specifically said that our method of agriculture, another thing is totally different. Then they said, our agriculture sector, you take care. And many people are fully aware about the seed protection. With regard to the seed that is supplied by foreign countries, it will give multiple growth, but next time you have to cultivate only with that seed and you cannot use your seed. As we are aware about how the seed we are developing, in the earlier cultivation, we took out some product and keep it, that will become the seed for next generation. I will tell you again with correction, in one of the university in Tamil Nadu, did the trial of seed culture, and there was a huge strike and opposition which went to the extent of firing to demolish the entire operation of the seed testing. We all proceeded on the basis, if something is given free, we should try it. If you want to say no, then you give me money. This is how it's happened. So my endeavor is, and to save short time is, in implementing the treaty, the international trade and business, the Parliament and the executive must be careful enough to look upon the precautions or the protection that is given under the very same act and use that act. Without that, if you simply follow it, in two of the cases, even our High Court and Supreme Court held, when treaty is there, you can't argue the case. With regard to language in Tamil Nadu, High Court has given a verdict like that. In agriculture operations, Supreme Court has given a verdict like that. Because all of us will go by the simple formula that treaty should become the law. And to my knowledge and my experience, the insular economy was given weight to the implementation of the common welfare and the corporate sector and all. Two other examples I will give you is, one is, as earlier MSME and all were talking to big and all. As far as the transport is concerned, you yourself is aware, taxis were normally owned by individuals only. Now, everybody is go by one or two companies, auto taxi only, but those companies did not own any auto or any taxi. Excepting the program they got it, they do not vote anything. Then in future, what will happen to those small scale people who are running those industry will collapse. Again, the hotel industry you take. Now everybody, if you go to the counter and buy a biryani, it is 225. If the same biryani, if you order through some chain system, it is 200. Whereas the shopman is giving at 150 only. How long it will survive? In course of time, the entire hotel and even now you would have seen half the industries are gone. So my endeavor is, even Reliance owner, Mr. Ambani said there is no level fielding field for implementation of trips and other things. We are at the disadvantage because we are not financially capable or competent to compete with the international companies and other things. My endeavor is only to say that since all the type of people are staying in this thing, when some matters comes to you on this issue, you can think about it and look upon whether our interest is affected or not. We should not worry about the international agreements. We should not worry about the developing countries. We should not worry about the other contracting party. We should worry and see that whether our domestic industries are protected, our domestic people are protected, and what is the consequence in future, not necessarily present. Only this thing is only to say these things while implementing or giving effect to these international law, regulation, etc. This precaution must be taken into account. Excepting that, I have nothing to add. Thanks for the opportunity.
I'm inviting a photographer to take group photo. தேநீர் இடைவெளிக்கு இடையில் இன்னொரு குரூப் ஃபோட்டோ இருக்குது. உட்காருங்க சார். இல்லை, இன்னொரு குரூப் ஃபோட்டோ இருக்குது. ஐ எம் இன்வைட்டிங் டான்ஸ்ரீ மாரிமுத்து, ஃபார்மர் மினிஸ்டர், டு கம் டு ஸ்டேஜ் டு டேக் a group photo along with the other VIPs. So I am inviting Dr. Kalanidhi Veerasamy, Dr. Palani Perisamy, Mr. Farmer Speaker, what is the Farmer Speaker, சிவக்கொழுந்து, அப்புறம் இவர் லோகி நாயுடு, கராத்தி தியாகராஜன், அண்ட் who is the other gentleman sitting, அப்புறம் காசி முத்து மாணிக்கம், all come to stage one group photo because to publish in the newspaper together. வாங்க எல்லாரும் வாங்க சார். சார் டான்ஸ்ரீ சார் வாங்க. சார் வாங்க சார். வாங்க. நீங்கள் ஃபார்மர் அட்வொகேட் தெரிஞ்சுக்கல. வாங்க வாங்க எப்படி சார் வாங்க. அவருக்கு கூட இருங்க. வாங்க சார். வாங்க இப்படி வாங்க. அடுத்து நெல்லுங்க பரவாயில்ல. அவருக்கு வாங்க சார். வாங்க அம்பாசிடர் வாங்க. வேறு யார் ஜட்ஜி வாங்க, அவர் ஸ்பீக்கர் வாங்க, முபாரக் வாங்க சார். ஏன்னா அவங்க இன்னைக்கு போயிடுறாங்க. தேங்க்யூ சார். எல்லாம் நீங்கள் எல்லாம் கீழே போயிடலாம். நாங்கள் சில விஐபிஸ் மட்டும் போனாலும் ஜெயராஜன் பேர் அவர் நீங்களும் இல்லைங்க அப்படி இல்லைங்க அங்கே இல்லைங்க நீங்கள் பொன்னாடி சார் நீங்கள் கொண்டாங்க கொடுங்க. இவருக்கு டாக்ஸிக் கொடுக்கணும். டாக்ஸிக் ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்காக நீங்கள் போட்டுருங்க. இந்த பொண்ணு அவார்ட் போனாங்க. எப்படி திரும்புங்க சார். கலாநிதி மெம்பர் ஆஃப் பார்லிமெண்ட் பார்த்தா கூட அசைன்மெண்ட் சார் மினிஸ்டர் அவருடைய சன் ரெண்டாவது செகண்ட் சார் அடுத்தது ஸ்பீக்கர் பார்த்தீங்க சார். நீங்கள் கீழே இருக்கு சார் எல்லாரும் சார். முத்து கீழே போயிடுங்க. அவ்வளோதான் முடிஞ்சு போயிடுங்க. நீங்கள் 5 இருங்க சார். நான் கூப்பிட்றேன் ஒவ்வொருத்தர் சார். அவர் பார்த்துக்கு சார் இருக்குல்ல சரி அவர் பார்த்து. ஏன்னா உள்ளூர் மினிஸ்டர் வந்து உங்கள் பார்வை நல்லா பார்த்துங்க. திருப்பி நின்றுங்க. அடுத்தது கராதி வந்து உங்களுக்கு மலேசியா வாட்சி தான் வருது. திரும்ப இல்லைங்க. அடுத்தது காத்து அதுதான் நம்மளெல்லாம் கட் பண்ணிடுவாங்க. அவரு ஒட்டு தனியா ஓகே நம்ம கொண்டாட அப்படியா கூட உடனே தேநீர் காஃபி இடைவேளை குடிச்சிட்டு எல்லாரும் வந்து 12:25 12:20 இங்கே வந்து சேருமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம். 12:20 will start next session. வாங்க.